Miles Bridges speaks to the media for the first time since he was eligible to play. He is eligible to play tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks and expected to get some run. What do we make of his comments? What do we expect from him the rest of the way? We discuss it on Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that includes YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can download the Game Time app and create an account. Use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Again, that's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's Doug Branson. You can find him on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can also subscribe to his subtext where you can get his depraved Hornets thoughts, and you can listen to me on WFNZ every weekday, Sports Radio 92.7 FM with Wes and Walker, 12 to 3 p.m. This is going to be the heavy episode. We got some of these rolling here. Doug, we're used to this by now. Got a year and a half experience with this after Miles Bridges turned himself in to be arrested last offseason, not this past offseason, but the offseason before that. So this is the first time we're going to see Miles Bridges play in quite some time. He's going to suit up tonight against the Milwaukee Bucks. Steve Clifford told you that he is ever since he was eligible after the 10-game suspension this year, 30 games overall, with the NBA having counted the last 20 games of last season towards that suspension. So this is the first time in 92 games played for the Charlotte Hornets that Miles Bridges will suit up. So because of that, he was practicing with the team. He's been practicing with the team already anyway. But yesterday was the first time we got to hear from him in a little while, since he had open media availability session since being signed on the qualifying offer. But we heard from him for the first time in a little while. And I know you have those comments in front of you, Doug. If you wanted to share some of those comments that we got, and then we can discuss them. What do you have?
Yeah, he was asked about how he felt about being back and what he thought the fan reception would be. And he said, quote, "I know a lot of people feel a way about me being back, and I understand that. And like I said before, I have to gain their trust back. So I'm just going out there and looking to play. I feel like if I can get us some more wins, I feel like people's perspective will change a little bit on me. But I'm just trying to get out there and help the team as much as I can. And I miss playing against these fans."
Against these fans? Okay.
Well, that's the quote from the Observer. I mean,
okay.
That's the quote.
Yeah, weird dismount from Miles Bridges, but also there's a lot to unpack in that comment anyway. Doug, I'll let you go first, because I think you and I both, it's the, as long as we win some games, then maybe I can get some of that trust back and get some of those good feelings back. That's the part, right? Like, go ahead, Doug. I know you have feelings about it.
Well, I just think it's amazing. I mean, I think it's brazen in its honesty, that, wins culture in sports is pervasive. And that, look, these players grew up just like the rest of us, witnessing how these situations were handled in the past, how certain actions were dealt with by the leagues, covered up, ignored by media outlets, and swept under the rug. And they also have witnessed certain people come back and provide wins for their teams, and certain actions be forgiven or at least forgotten, and everybody moves on. And so they, they're just like us. They have some understanding about how all of this works. They're not different from us in that way. What is different, Walker, what's amazing about it is that he would actually voice that he would say, I feel like if I can get us some more wins, I feel like people's perspective will change a little bit on me. Not, I feel like if I, give money to something or do something or have some other action that players typically say they're going to do as they go through some kind of, reformation project. That's what we're used to hearing. We're not used to hearing someone come out and say, look, if I just won a couple ball games, you guys are going to forget about this.
Yeah. So look, for me, you go back to that part. I feel like if I can get us some wins, I feel like people's perspective will change a little bit on me. And if you read the before and after, it's not that I'm avoiding any context here. I want to be clear. He says, I know a lot of people feel a way about me being back, and I understand that. Like I said before, I have to gain their trust back. Okay, given the situation, fine enough. So I'm just going to go out there looking to play. I feel like I can get us some more wins. I feel like people's perspective will change on me a little. It will change a little bit, but I'm just trying to go out there and help the team as much as I can. So wins should not affect how the perspective is on Miles Bridges. It shouldn't. Because if you believe that Miles Bridges deserves a second chance, which is what the Miles Bridges defenders are saying, right? There's a lot, whether it be on the world-famous WFNZ text line on 92.7 FM, whether it be people tweeting at you for being vocal about the wrongdoing that has taken place within the NBA, within the Charlotte Hornets, and, of course, within Miles Bridges, whether it be people tweeting at whoever has an opinion on this when they hear Miles Bridges' comments. The idea, at least I hope, some people don't care. Some people are using the whole second chance thing, due process. My God, people are holding the due process as camouflage.
Okay,
right?
but so is Adam Silver. But so
ahead.
is the commissioner of the NBA. Adam Silver.
But that's
went
what I said.
on.
The NBA, the Charlotte Hornets, and Miles.
Right.
Yes, no, that's what I'm saying. They're using it as camouflage. All I'm saying is the second chance thing, right? If you cared about Miles Bridges undergoing any form of rehabilitation, this comment does not demonstrate that. The comment of, if I can get more wins, then the perspective would change on me a little bit. I think anybody with an IQ point should understand that a win in the NBA should not change our perspective on someone who pled no contest to a domestic violence felony charge. Those two things should not matter. But you are right in that it's brazen in honesty, because it is going to affect it. In fact, the idea of a victory is going to change the perspective on Miles, because Miles is a really talented player. The dude's really good. We've mentioned it a million times. He was going to get $30 million a year. He was a fringe all-star. He had improved, already being a pretty solid player. He had improved tremendously the last season that he played in the NBA. And so the very idea of a win, the idea of a talented basketball player getting you closer to the play-in, because they haven't got anything further than that, the idea of getting closer to the play-in is enough for you to change your perspective, or to not change it because that means you would have had a different one in the first place, to emphasize your point on welcoming Miles back. You mentioned the reception here, Doug. Like, the reception to me, it's been an organic conversation for a lot of people. I don't feel like it's been aggregated, right? I don't think it's been this idea that's thrown out there on Twitter that everybody else is talking about it. To me, we came up with this idea on what is the fan reception going to be like right away. We did that at WFNZ. I saw a few other podcasts talking about that. It's a question that everybody has, I think, internally. And when, the reception to me, like, I don't know how much it matters. What's going to happen is there's going to be people that are cheering. And people that are cheering, it's going to be a real bad look. And I don't know what's going to drown out what. I think there's going to be a mixture. It's probably going to be 50%. But the emphasis to cheer for Miles Bridges before, like, context doesn't matter. Because when you're talking about Miles Bridges ending maybe ending a 10-0 run for the Hornets to get back in the game in the fourth quarter, okay, we're going to move on. We're going to cheer for the Hornets. A lot of people are. Miles Bridges is going to make impact plays to help the Charlotte Hornets. And in those moments, people are going to cheer. And I'm not trying to be some, strict fan legislator on how you should handle your fandom with the Charlotte Hornets. Like, I get it. Yeah, we're going to stand up. The Spectrum Center is going to be loud in those moments. But think about it when he's introduced or when he comes into the game. And then you want to stand up and, because of what happened, right? The dude missed 92 games on his own doing here. And you're so emphatic about him coming back without any proof of rehabilitation. He's telling you that he needs to gain the trust back, and you're willing to give it to him before he's even earned it. I hope that he rehabilitates, Doug. I hope all that happens. But in the two media availabilities that we've seen from him, whether it be the big podium, everybody come in and ask questions, or whether it be the scrum at practice, there haven't been any comments that suggest to me that, oh, okay, he's starting to get it.
Well, there are a couple of problems with both of those press conferences, I think. Well, at least for sure this one, maybe not the first one, but he continues to be under some kind of legal issue or action, and thus it's going to prevent him from saying really anything about the actual case, and the media knows that, and so they're not going to ask directly about those things. They're going to try to ask around it, but he can easily avoid talking about that. And so no one except the people that just want to love Miles Bridges are going to be satisfied fully with these comments. And I think there are a section of people that remember the pictures that were posted on TMZ of the victim, Michelle Johnson, and they can't forget those images. And anything short of Miles Bridges saying those images were doctored and none of that's true and I didn't do any of that and here is the proof, which, by the way, he had an opportunity to do in a court of law and opted not to do that and pled no contest and took some probationary punishment as a result of pleading no contest. And by the way, the NBA also and the Hornets clearly think he did something. They won't say what, but they clearly think he did something or he would not have been shadow banned for an entire year. And by the way, don't get me started on
just done what they're doing here with the protection order and not do anything, right? And we'll see how this plays out, and then we'll see if anything comes from it. So maybe this is a little premature, and I understand that, but that's the other option. It's like, what else is the NBA going to do? Well, they could have done absolutely nothing. Like, they would have been ridiculed like hell, but it hasn't stopped them in other instances before.
And what makes the Adam Silver comments that it wouldn't be fair to punish Miles Bridges because he is offered due process in a court of law. It's Adam Silver's a lawyer, and he said some very nice lawyery things. And I'm sure the NBA is under some kind of sort of corporate due process that they have to deal with in terms of dealing with the union. But the team is under nothing like that. Their due process is essentially, we would like you to be on the team or we would not like you to be on the team. And so they've chosen that they want him to be on the team. But it's what makes that ridiculous, what Adam Silver's saying, because the punishments have been inconsistent, because the punishments have been behind closed doors, because they've been negotiated, in secrets, and they're shadow bans. And now, when he says, well, we have to be fair. And now there's nothing fair or consistent about how the NBA handles domestic violence issues. The only thing that's consistent is that the NBA doesn't care about women. I mean, that's the only thing consistent about any of this. The other problem, and we could take this into the next segment, the other problem with these comments and feeling any way about these comments is that Miles Bridges, whether you like it or not, is absolutely 100% correct.
Yeah.
If Miles Bridges delivers more wins, people's perspective will change. He knows that. The NBA knows that. The Charlotte Hornets know that. They're all banking on you caring more about wins than human beings. That's the bottom line.
And again, it's the idea of a win. It's even right now, it's even the idea of, oh, we're better. Yay. People just want a basketball team. I get it. People just want to dwindle it down and they just want to see a basketball team. Trust me, I'm actually with you. Not like a little bit. I'm with you 100% on that. I want a basketball team too. But this is what's going on. And it's not just a basketball team. All right. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
You love it so much, we're going to continue it. How do we cover Miles Bridges this season? Find out next. All right, let's talk a little bit more about some of our sponsors we appreciate so much. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can even switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. More Locked On Hornets coming. Doug, this isn't anything, just to give people a peek behind the curtain. This next question on how we'll cover Miles Bridges, this isn't anything that we've really talked about. Like, just for full transparency, this is not something where Doug and I had some, pre-show meeting, post-show meeting. Hey, Miles is going to come back at some point. how do you want to cover this? This is going to be
we probably should have, to be perfectly honest.
I know.
Like, we probably should have. But look, we want to do it in front. We just want to do it live. We want to do it in front of the people that we trust the most, our listeners, our viewers.
No, I'm not even saying that we shouldn't have. I'm just telling you that we didn't. I am brazen in my honesty that I am telling you.
It's an honest show today.
That we did not have a pre-show meeting on this. And so maybe our answers coincide. Maybe they're different because we have different outlets. You have your website. I have a radio show. We have different things that we're going to be talking about this on. And so maybe they're a little bit different with whatever we have to speak on our certain platform. But I'll leave it to you here, Doug, with covering Miles Bridges. How do you plan? What were your plans for the show, at least from the producer's chair? How are you planning on covering Miles this year?
Yeah, I've thought a lot about it, and I think I lean on what my role is within the Charlotte Hornets fandom media sphere as it is, or at least how I see it. I've never claimed to be a reporter. I am not a journalist, even though people, when I put stuff on Twitter, they want to accuse me of being a reporter or a journalist. I'm not. And with that, I don't get the esteem or respect that comes along with doing that job. And I don't hold myself to some of the standards that those reporters and journalists hold themselves to. I've called myself multiple times a fanalist. I think I'm half fan, half basketball analyst. I've been watching a lot of basketball for a very long time, so I bring that knowledge to that. But, there's part of me that is a fan of the idea of this team. And so I think my coverage will be informed on that, in that I will fairly analyze what Miles Bridges does on the court and what he contributes to the Charlotte Hornets, while at the same time not being super enthused or enthused at all. In fact, maybe the opposite, that he is a part of the Charlotte Hornets. I think I can fairly balance those two things in my own head. And then in the coverage of him, again, I'll just try to be as fair as I can and say he did a good thing there, and that contributed to the Charlotte Hornets getting a victory, while at the same time understanding that I'm not a huge fan of him being on the team.
The construction is ramping up at what is a pristine time in our conversation, so I appreciate that. But with the background noise possibly being a distraction, I apologize. You would think that this was real complicated, and I used to think it was complicated, right? When you would have this conversation on how to cover any athlete that's had a domestic violence either charge or had been accused of domestic violence or had any run-in with off the court, off the field trouble. How do you cover that particular player as their career goes on? And honestly, I don't know if it's all that complicated, at least as I see it, because it would be weird. I don't know what good it does to remind people on a Miles Bridges alley-oop to end the game, or a three-point shot in the second quarter where it just contributes to keeping them on track. I don't know what good it does, or I don't know how it's necessary to continue in that moment to bring up Miles and his charge, his arrest every single time. There's Miles Bridges, catching an alley from LaMelo. Remember, he pled no contest. It will be brought up at times, right? Like, there are going to be times where we'll bring it up, but we're going to cover Miles Bridges, maybe not with the same level of enthusiasm, that's for sure. But I plan on covering Miles Bridges the way I do with a lot of the other players on the court. I plan on discussing how he affects the basketball team. I plan on discussing what's going on with him as it affects the Charlotte Hornets in any capacity, because this is what we've graduated to with a lot of the other athletes that might be on the field when they shouldn't be, whether it be timing or whether it be they shouldn't be on the field even after 2, 3, 4 years because of whatever the incident is. You do move on and you cover the team. And so I wouldn't call myself a journalist either by any means. I'm a radio host. I have opinions more so than I would, than maybe a journalist would. Like, maybe the waters get muddied a little bit. I don't know if I've really ever reported anything. I don't know if I've ever had a sources tweet, Doug. But I do think, I am at the press conferences every now and then. But I think for me, I feel pretty comfortable in covering Miles Bridges, discussing how it's going to affect certain things. And if it's relevant to bring up his arrest, and it might be, there's a great chance that it might be relevant to bring up his arrest, then we'll bring it up and we'll talk about it, just like we haven't shied away from it at all, much to the dismay of a lot of listeners on this podcast and out there, and maybe not so much the dismay of people that care.
Well, I'm humble enough also to say that I don't really know. I'm kind of on this. I'm on the same journey that I think some number of fans will be on. They're not going to know, like, well, what do I do when he has like one of those high flying dunks in transition that, sends the momentum back in favor of the Hornets. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I'm humble enough to understand that I really don't know how exactly it's going to influence not what I cover. Again, I'm not going to hide from the fact that he's a good basketball player and having him on the floor, if he's the same basketball player that he was 589 days ago, that he will influence the team in a good way on the floor. I can't hide from that fact. I wouldn't hide from that fact. But I also would be lying to say it's not going to influence the way that I reveal that information or the way I process that information or the way I talk about that information.
And certainly the way you feel, right? Like the way you feel might be very different. When you write about a LaMelo 3-point shot, you are going to have a different feeling than when you write about Miles Bridges dunk. That's just how it's going to be. And you get to decide that for yourself.
And what I would encourage folks to do in the Spectrum Center, when they're talking to other fans about this, or when they're watching a game with their friends at a bar or whatever, I would just say, withhold judgment about how other fans cheer or don't cheer or react to this stuff. And, let's give everyone a little bit of grace in this kind of situation where it is very complicated. I don't think you or I have really shied away from that idea that all of this stuff is super complicated. There's a lot that we know there's a lot that we know, there's a lot that we've seen, but there's a lot that we don't know, and there's a lot that we've not seen. So I just think, through this whole process, I'm speaking for me. I'm trying to withhold judgment about, how the Spectrum Center reacts, or how certain pundits react to all this stuff, or how they cover this stuff, and just try to, move forward as best we can, because there will be a Charlotte Hornets team after Miles Bridges. There will be a Charlotte Hornets team to cover after Miles Bridges is no longer suiting up. Could be as soon as next year, by the way, because he signed a qualifying offer. So he's an unrestricted free agent.
Which there's a conversation
so it's important to remember that too.
Yeah. Well, I know a decent amount of people don't think that he's going to be back, but as we know, time moves on and you start to talk about this stuff less. It's going to happen on this podcast. We're just going to talk about it less because look, Doug, it was happening going into the season. We were starting to talk about it less and less. We were going to talk about his return. We would have had this convo, I think. I don't know if it would have been crazy different, us discussing how we're going to cover Miles Bridges, whether he should be back or not. I mean, there was a new alleged incident. There was something else to bring up now that happened in the same neighborhood of what took place a year and a half ago. Or at least stemming from the same incident.
Yeah, and you and I haven't even talked about the Charlotte Hornets statement on all this, which I don't have it in front of me, but essentially they used the word comfortable. They were comfortable with the information that they had on the recent the arrest warrants and the violation of the protection order and so on and so forth. They were comfortable with the information that they had on that to move forward, and the NBA obviously was as well. Because look, if the NBA didn't want Miles Bridges to play right now, let's be clear, he would not be playing. And the Charlotte Hornets would consult with the NBA and say, "Hey, NBA, are you good?" NBA says we're good. Then that means he's cleared to play. And the Charlotte Hornets are obviously comfortable with that information. What I would say is, even if they're comfortable with the information that they have on these particular incidents, that doesn't guarantee that that's going to necessarily go their way. And also, I mean, regardless of how you feel about the first act that landed Miles Bridges in trouble and had him charged with felony domestic violence, and how you feel about these latest issues that he's dealing with, okay? Regardless of where you fall on that, I think you would be intellectually dishonest to argue that there isn't a probability at this point that there will be another incident. It has to be a non-zero chance. And I would even argue that it's not even a low probability that there's going to be some kind of incident in the future that they're going to have to deal with. And so that's the risk that the Hornets are taking as they move forward on this journey.
And so I'll have a couple more things because I don't want to bring this to the last segment. I do want to have some kind of segment where we don't have to talk about this, but if you want to, fine. My thing with Miles is you can feel comfortable. We don't have that information. We have the information that we have, and so we get to decide that for ourselves. So that's the Charlotte Hornets statement, but they're not going to reveal it. Fine. I think there are reasons as to why. You might not even think it feasible to release that information. I totally get it. But that's your saying. Remember, they didn't say anything about being comfortable when they signed him to the qualifying offer to have him back for a year, right? Like they didn't use that word then. I imagine they probably weren't all that comfortable, but they were going past it and saying, yeah, Miles, he's good. So we're going to bring him back and he's going to play. So I think even the differences in the comments that we got where, man, you got like Doug, as short as this statement was that we got from the Charlotte Hornets, it was longer and more substantive than anything we got going like in the first incident. And then until they signed him. I mean, Doug, you mentioned it. It was they lead the league in, looking for information, not actually getting anything, gathering information, except not actually understanding or gathering anything. And they didn't question the suspension at all. They didn't. I don't even know what they said, Doug. They didn't say anything the first go around until we got this alleged violation of the protection order. So, yeah, that's the new statement. All right. Is that it? Any final thoughts here, Doug? Or do you just want to keep moving on, right? And just go to the last segment and go to the last bullet point. Oh, and they play the Bucks.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think Giannis is going to play. I mean, if we've seen that, looks like maybe no Giannis for this in-season tournament game. Who knows?
He is not brazenly Giannis. He is not that. Let's talk about it in the last segment. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
Good old-fashioned round ball talk, baby. The Bucks, they are in town tonight. Another in-season tournament game. Giannis might not play. Well, the Hornets actually going to have a chance to go 2-1. They play the Bucks well. I don't know. We'll see. Let's talk a little bit more also about Prize Picks. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. It's the most fun you could have, winning up to 25 times your money this basketball season. All you have to do is select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projected stats, and place your entry. With the basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, LeBron James, Travis Kelce, you could have them at a 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made plus receptions. Fun to play across leagues. Prize Picks even offers a reboot policy so that your entries stay in place even if one of your players gets injured. I think that's huge for football and basketball games. If you have a player who exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with the injury insurance policy. I know a lot of you might have done the Prize Picks thing with Joe Burrow or Mark Andrews last night. Think about how great it is with Prize Picks to have the injury insurance policy rather than a different platform not allowing you that option. And you just got to live with the first quarter, the second quarter that Joe Burrow played. You don't have to do that with Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. More Locked On Hornets ahead. So they're 1-1 in the in-season tournament right now, Doug, and they play the Milwaukee Bucks tonight. They have a chance to go 1-2. It would be nice to see them continue on through group play, but we'll see. Now, Milwaukee, good basketball team. Trading for Damian Lillard this offseason, monster move, pretty good basketball team. But Giannis is questionable with a calf injury. And so, Doug, I see you thinking. I see you, you know, just really, really thinking about this game. Are you flirting with a win for the Charlotte Hornets tonight?
I don't know, because you say, well, the reason I'm confused because you say something like Giannis is questionable, and I think, wow, if Giannis doesn't play, Giannis is a super talented player that is tough to deal with. I mean, you have to form your whole defensive strategy around a guy like that, and then, oh, hey, by the way, they acquired Damian Lillard, another player that you have to fashion a defense around, and it's not like. It's not like the game against Dallas where they had Luka and Kyrie, because you can do a lot of switching there with two guards that becomes a little bit more difficult when it's Giannis and a guard. But traditionally, the Hornets have done a pretty good job of containing Giannis, and PJ loves to step up to that challenge. PJ is available tonight. The other thing is that you're right, they're a good basketball team, but they haven't proven it all the way yet that they're a good basketball team with Damian Lillard. The Dame-Giannis combo hasn't gotten off to like a stellar start. It's good. I mean, they're talented players. But, I think, honestly, not having Giannis, they were able to beat the Toronto Raptors. And in that game, Damian Lillard, who struggled to start the year, I think he had 37 points and like 13 or 14 assists. So, yeah, I don't know if this is actually a great thing for the Charlotte Hornets.
Oh, okay. You're going the other way. You're going the exact opposite way, saying, okay, I gotcha. Yeah. With Giannis, so wait, are you subscribing to the Steve Clifford idea of they need better competition?
Yeah, that's the thing I forgot to say. So I was focused on how this would affect the Bucks, but yes, the Hornets seem to play better when they have to play a bunch of star players like they did against Dallas. They were hanging in that game for a while. They seem to step up to those challenges. And then you have this other thing where Gordon Hayward is questionable and Brandon Miller is questionable. And one would think, oh, well, having both of those players back would be a positive thing. And then we see how the reserves step up and play with their hair on fire and hang in there with the Miami Heat. So I don't think with this particular team right now, you can make any assumptions. I think it's really difficult to analyze the Charlotte Hornets team. I feel for opposing teams who are trying to scout the Charlotte Hornets right now.
Oh, wow.
Because their play is inconsistent. Their sort of attention to detail is just all over the place. I don't know what kind of Charlotte Hornets team we're going to see play against the Bucks. And oh, by the way, you throw in the guy that hasn't played in almost 2 years is going to be playing tonight as well. I just think you throw up your hands in this one and go, well, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, let's put that Miles Bridges coverage question to the test in the very next segment, shall we? With Miles Bridges coming back, getting a significant role, I wonder with Bridges coming back, I know he's not coming back from an injury, right? I know that. It's still a long time to have not played basketball, and it would still be understandable for Miles Bridges to undergo some rust. What I think might happen is maybe there could be some adrenaline from Miles Bridges just within his own self, comes out, maybe plays well and gives you a lot of energy for a little while. And then maybe over like a 5, 10, 15 game sample, whatever it is, start to tail off because then you're really starting to get into the NBA routine, trying to get back on track. And then maybe in the second half, you start to see what you saw 2 years ago from Miles when he was on the court. I wonder if that's what you're going to see. The other thing is, Doug, you said there was a Bucks fan page that said the Hornets don't have any injuries. Is that what you said?
Well, it's the Fan Nation, which I think is SI. Okay. It's the fake SI. Right. There's like a real Sports Illustrated now and a fake Sports Illustrated. So there's this Fan Nation page for the Bucks. And yes, in the injury report, they go through all of the Bucks injuries, which include Giannis, but also Marjon Beauchamp, questionable with an ankle. Jay Crowder's out. And then they get to Charlotte. It just says Charlotte has no players on the injured list. Yeah,
that's hilarious. That's a Carissa Thompson report. She just made it up. She works for Bucks Nation now. That's not true. The injury update, according to Charlotte Hornets PR, Gordon Hayward and Brandon Miller are both questionable with this game in this game. And hamstring strain for Gordon, ankle sprain for Brandon Miller, both questionable. Cody, James Bouknight, Frank Ntilikina, Terry Rozier, they're all out. So the Terry Rozier thing, it was at first at least 2 games, which, that means at the best possible scenario, he'd be back after the third. But he's missing more time now. So I hope that this isn't one of those injuries that continues to linger and linger and linger, because I think we're about to tilt that way. How many games did he miss? Like 4 or 5 at this point. It was over a week ago. And if they're listing him as out yesterday, like he's not going to play in this game against Milwaukee.
Yeah.
I hope this isn't something that lingers for him.
I think they know exactly how long he's going to be out. And I think when you've heard Terry talk about the injury, he's been very confident about what the injury is, but also he recognizes it's not an injury he's dealt with before. And he also recognizes that he's not the same player he was, 5+ years ago. He's getting older. They've got to manage these injuries different when you get older, especially groin injuries. Those can be nagging injuries. If you don't nip it in the bud, then it can be something that, a couple games later you strain it again, and then it turns into a whole thing. So I think what they're trying to do is take the hit now so that it doesn't become the situation that you're talking about. So I don't know how long, I don't know how much longer he's going to be out, but at this point, I think the Charlotte Hornets would be best to protect all available assets heading into the trade deadline. Okay? I'll put it that way. They should just make sure that as many of the players that they have that are valuable continue to be valuable and continue to be available as we get closer to February. Okay? I'll just say that.
All right. No, that's a good point, and we can end on that one. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods. You know what else you can go subscribe to? EveryHornetsBoxscore.com. Also listen to WFNZ. You can either do it at 92.7 FM or you can download the WFNZ app. Listen to Wes and Walker 12 to 3 each weekday. Also, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. This is like Anchorman 3, where there's just nonstop news constantly. That's what Locked On 24/7 is. They have a YouTube channel. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. David Locke is a madman. David, if you're listening, you're mad. Okay, I tell you, mad. 24, like you are absolutely Ron Burgundy going national, where you just have the craziest stories. Just stay true to who you are and don't go with the squirrel on water skis. Just stay true to the stories that matter. Okay, that's what I ask you, Mr. David Locke. Once again, we appreciate you hopping on. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you on Monday.
Bye-bye.